Good morning, class 6. Welcome to the next lecture, that is the second chapter. Before starting the chapter, I would like to introduce myself. I am Mrs. Shruti Srivastav, who is going to teach you social science. I know when you heard this name, some of you are making faces. But you know what? We have lot of things to learn from social science. From history, we study about the past, and from the past we can learn lot of things, the mistakes that people might have done in that era. We can rectify them, we can learn from the mistakes which they have done and not repeat it. When you talk about civics, we study the different bodies which are working in the organizations for improvising our life. Then, when we talk about the geography, we learn about the physical features of different places, how we have to adapt, or how human beings or the animals have adapted themselves to the living condition. I hope by now you might have changed your perception. Some of you might have studied history, some of you might not have studied. You have made the perception from what your maybe your parents have, that it's a little monotonous subject. Some of you might have learned it from your siblings, but we would try to make it interesting and interactive. Fine, let's see the chapter. From hunting, gathering to growing food. Tushar was going from Delhi to Chennai for his cousin's wedding. They were traveling by train and he had managed to squeeze into the window sill, his nose glued to the glass pane. As he watched trees and houses fly past, his uncle tapped his shoulder and said, "Do you know that trains were first used about 150 years ago? And the people began using buses a few decades later." Tushar wondered, when people could travel quickly from one place to another, did they spend their entire lives wherever they were born? Not quite. Okay, yes, now you can understand, you can see that Tushar was going with his parents to some place for attending the cousin's wedding, that is from Delhi to Chennai. And on the way, his uncle asked him, or in fact, you can say informed him, that 150 years ago, that was the first time when trains had been used. Now, you must be wondering that if trains were not there or buses were not there, that means people were not traveling from one place to another? No, it was not like that. But then the traveling was a difficult task. Let's see. The earliest people, why were they on the move? We know about people who lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago. Today we describe them as hunter gatherers. The name comes from the way in which they got their food. Generally, they hunted wild animals, caught fish and birds, gathered fruits, roots, nuts, seeds, leaves, stalks, and eggs. So, the hunter gatherers, they lived in the subcontinent. Hunter gatherer, from the name itself, it is very clear that they hunted whatever they got in the areas where they lived. That is, the animals, sometimes they got the birds, sometimes they got the eggs to eat, and they gathered all the fruits and the roots which was available to them. Now, hunter gatherers moved from place to place. There are many reasons for this. First, if they had stayed at one place for a long time, they would have eaten up all the available plant and animal resources. Therefore, they would have had to go elsewhere in search of food. Okay, before we proceed, just take example of yourself. We are living at different places. There are few things which we need for us for our survival, and that we keep in mind when we are choosing a house for ourselves. You must just go and ask your parents why they bought the house where you are living right now. They will say that it is accessible to your schools, market is very much nearby, So these are the things which we keep in mind. That was a same scenario was with the people who lived in the forest. For them, their needs were few. That is, they wanted food to eat, they wanted water to drink. So what they did was they lived in the areas where they could kill animals easily, where rivers were nearby. That is the reason you will find that the earliest civilizations were near the rivers. Second, animals move from place to place, either in search of smaller prey or in the case of deer and wild cattle in search of grass and leaves. That is why those who hunted them had to follow their movement. So obviously animals also keep on moving from one place to another, and people, those who eat them, they also have to follow them. The animals, why they moved? Because maybe they have eaten the grass which was there in particular area, so they have to move in search of the area for the pasture they need. Sometimes for the smaller prey they want to eat, for that also they have to travel from one place to another. Then comes third, plants and trees bear fruit in different seasons. So people may have moved from season to season in search of different kinds of plant. Fourth, people, plants and animals need water to survive. Water is found in lakes, streams and rivers. While many rivers and lakes are perennial with water throughout the year, others are seasonal. People living on their banks would have had to go in search of water during the dry season. Okay, so plants, fruits also, we know that all the season, yeah, you cannot get all the fruits round the year. So some fruits are available in winters, some fruits are available in summers. So they, people also who were dependent for these fruit, or like who were eating these fruits, they also have to move from place to place, and accordingly from the season to season they change their locations. And last, as I have already told you all, that water is something which is very important for survival. So they have to move in search of lakes and streams. Some lakes are there throughout the year. If you visit any place, like for example, if you visit Mirzapur, there are, you can say, the waterfalls, but round the year you will not see it. During summers if you go, you will see that they have dried up, but during rainy season you will see that there are many waterfalls in that area. Okay, how do we know about these people? Archaeologists have found some of the things hunter gatherers made and used. It is likely that people made and used tools of stone, wood, and bone, of which stone tools have survived best. Some of these stone tools are used to cut meat and bone, scrape bark from trees and hides, that is, the animal skin, chop fruit and roots. Some may have been attached to handles of bone or wood to make spears and arrows for hunting. Okay, how we know so much about them? Obviously they have not come down on the earth to tell us all these things. So the archaeologists, those who are studying the old tools which they have retrieved after excavation, after digging certain areas, so from those stones and the tools, we come to know about their lifestyle. So what they did was they used different types of stones, and they cut stones into particular shape for chopping the meat, for scraping off the bark, etc. And they attached these stones to different, like you can say, wood pieces, or sometimes they attach these bones to the, made some sort of handles, and that made, for them it was like, convenient to hunt the animals. Other tools were used to chop woods, which was used as firewood. Wood was also used to make huts and tools. So, what were the uses of the wood? That is, they used for making tools, then they used wood as a firewood, that is, burning the wood, and they also made huts and tools. Now, choosing a place to live in. Look at map 2 below. All the places marked with red triangles are sites from which archaeologists have found evidence of hunter gatherers. Hunter gatherers lived in many more places. Only some are shown on the map. Many sites were located near sources of water such as rivers and lakes. So you can see the map and you can see the areas where the archaeologists have excavated and found that they got the evidence that hunter gatherers lived in those areas. You can see like Bhimbetka, Hunski, Kornul caves, etc. Many others were also there, but that has not been marked in the map. Bhimbetka is a place which is in Madhya Pradesh. This is an old site with caves and rock shelter. People chose these natural caves because they provided shelter from the rain, heat, and wind. These rock shelters are close to the Narmada Valley. Can you think of why people chose to live here? I have already told you this thing, that why they chose to live near the water, that they could easily get the water, and they were safe when they were living in the caves. It was like house for them. Why we live in houses? Because it protects us. We feel safe when we are in the house. Same ways for when they felt safe when they were living in the caves. As stone tools were important, people tried to find places where good quality stone was easily available. Rock painting and what they tell us. Many of the caves in which these early people lived have paintings on the wall. Some of the best examples are from Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. These paintings show wild animals drawn with great accuracy and skill. Why do you think that these people made paintings? Okay, I'll tell you. Yes, because it is a way of communicating. Like for example, right now we are communicating through the online videos. Whenever you feel that you have to say something to me, you can easily write down the questions on the link provided, that is on the Google Classroom itself. You can write down your queries and I will sort it out. That is the way we are communicating right now. What we do in the class, if you have queries, you can easily raise your hands and come up with your queries. And what do? We sort out, we answer your questions, and that is the way we do the communication. But when we talk about people living in ancient times, they might not have a very proper language to communicate. Like for example, if I start talking in French, will you be able to communicate with me? No, of course not, because you will not understand that language. Same ways, if you start asking questions in Arabic to me, I will not be able to answer to you because I am not familiar with that language. So, what they did was to communicate and to pass their time, they started drawing what their daily routine. Hunting was something which they used to do every day almost. So they drew these pictures on the walls of the caves. Now let's proceed. Sites are the areas or places where the remains of things like tools, pots, buildings, etc. were found. These were made, used, and left behind by people. These may be found on the surface of the earth, buried under the earth, or sometimes even underwater. You will learn more about different sites in later chapter. So you understood what are sites? The sites are the places from where these archaeologists have got tools, the pots, buildings, etc., seals, and many more things which help them to study or which help them to know about that time period. Finding out about fire. finding the Kurnool caves on map 2, traces of ash have been found here. This suggests that people were familiar with the use of fire. Fire could have been used for many things: as a source of light, to roast meat, and to scare away animals. What do we use fire for today? Yes, you can name a few. Yes, you're right. We are using fire for to keeping ourselves warm. We are using fire to make our food. We are using fire sometimes to burn the garbage or the heaps of paper which has accumulated, the leaves which are there in your garden. Yes, you can think of few other uses of fire as well. Names and dates. Archaeologists have given lengthy names for the time that we are studying. They call the earliest period the Paleolithic. This comes from two Greek words, paleo meaning old and lithos meaning stone. The name points to the importance of finds of stone tools. The Paleolithic period extends from 2 million years ago to about 1200 years ago. The long stretch of time is divided into the lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. This long span of time covers 99% of human history. The period when we find environmental changes beginning about 1200 years ago till about 10,000 years ago is called Mesolithic, that is, Middle Stone. Stone tools found during this period are generally tiny and are called microliths. Microliths were probably stuck on the handles of bone or wood to make tools such as saws and sickles. At the same time, older varieties of tools continued to be in use. Okay, so by this we come to know that archaeologists have divided the ancient time into Paleolithic, Mesolithic age, and the last is Neolithic. We will study about it. Paleolithic was the longest duration, so it has been divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. Paleolithic word has been taken from the Greek word paleo. Its meaning is old and lithos is a stone. So therefore Paleolithic age is also commonly known as Old Stone Age. Mesolithic, as it's from the name itself it is clear that it is a middle age, middle time period, that is from 12,000 years till 10,000 years ago. There they started using microliths. From the name, you all are aware what is micro? Yes, that's right, it's the small. So small tools were made in this time period. What they did was they attached those tools to the handles made by bone or the wood, and you can understand these like saws and sickles which we use nowadays as well. The last stage, that is the next stage from about 10,000 years ago, is known as Neolithic. From the name again, neo, that is new. We have mentioned the name of some places. You will find the names of many more places in later chapter. Very often we use present day names of the places where people lived in the past because we do not know what they called them. So the reason is that because we are not aware what names they used, so we are using the names which we are familiar with. A changing environment. Around 1200 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world. With the shift to relatively warm conditions in many areas, this led to the development of grasslands. This in turn led to an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, and cattle, that is, animals that survived on grass. These who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. It is likely that this helped people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. Fishing also became important. So, in Neolithic period, what happened that the people have started observing the changes in the climate. They followed these animals, they studied these animals, and they came to know that when was their breeding season, uh, how to follow them, so that, and that was the that from there you can say that they got the idea of herding, that is keeping the animals themselves, breeding them, and getting, like, using the products from them, like for example wool from the sheep, milk and other products from the animals could be used. Then what other things they started was fishing. That also became important. So class, here we are going to end the, like, I'm going to stop the video here. If you have any queries, you can easily write your questions on the Classroom Google app. And if you like, please do the questions which I will be giving you after this video. Take care of yourselves, be safe, be at home. Thank you for till the time I upload another video. Bye class.